This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories. Beware the Batman was a CG animated show that released in Cartoon Network, I believe in 2013, and when I first watched it, I really did not enjoy the show, and the show was cancelled halfway into the season. I had no idea that the back half was released through Adult Swim, and learned that recently, and heard the back half was pretty good. So I decided to go rewatch the whole show. Well, at least rewatch the first half and then watch the second half to see if it was as bad as I remembered. And that's the question I'll be answering today. As I review this show, was Beware the Batman as bad as I remember as a kid? So, looking at the first 13 episodes, I believe, it's 12 or 13, which built up to the Ra's al Ghul reveal and his immediate appearance. I feel like the episodes that weren't dealing with the League of Assassins and Anarchy did feel pretty bad. I did not really enjoy the characters of Professor Pig, who is completely different than he is in normal comics. Although I didn't really know who Professor Pig was at the time, I really wanted to know the real Professor Pig until he played Arkham Knight at the end of 2015 or 2016 when I first got my PS4. I don't remember the exact year, it was one of those two. I think it was 2015, a few months after Arkham Knight came out. But I did remember him, and I always thought that he was the one bad character I saw in the Beware the Batman show. But yeah, he was actually a pretty good character. He was crazy, but this one always put a bad taste in my mouth for this character. But looking back at him, I still feel like he was a bad character, with him being more like Poison Ivy, being an animal rights activist instead of a plants rights like Ivy was. And he does lots of his crimes based around that. And I get why they don't have a guy who goes and cuts people's faces off and turns them into, people that have no identity. That's extremely dark, even by older Cartoon Network standards. Since today all they want to do is poop and fart jokes with shows like Teen Titans Go. And I'm honestly may talk about that. I feel like Cartoon Network has fallen. But, I get this over a completely different video topic. Looking back at this one, yeah, I'd say those episodes were about pretty bad. Definitely not as bad as I remember, but still not amazing. In fact, I think that there was a good reason I didn't like it. And although I do now enjoy looking at Batman's more obscure villains, I didn't really enjoy it at the time and was looking for more traditional villains. And from that first half, the most mainstream villain was probably Lady Shiva and Anarchy that you would even have a chance of hearing about, but I haven't heard of either of those at that time. And although I did know almost all of them going in, even Humpty Dumpty through Arkham's franchise, from some lore stuff in there, I really didn't know anyone at the time, so there wasn't that many people to be connected to. Also, I feel like there are a few characters that felt a little off. The Bruce Wayne, although he does look like it, doesn't exactly sound like Bruce Wayne. I don't know what it is. He doesn't sound like either him or Batman, but that's mainly on me. And I'm watching the Batman right now, and I kind of have the opposite problem with that one. but once I finish up that show, I'll be reviewing it. But going back to this one, I also didn't love Alfred Pennyworth's characterization. He felt so different from what Alfred Pennyworth usually is. He was more of a bodyguard in this one than a butler, and seemed more like Bruce's friend than a man Bruce saw as a father, even though this Alfred did raise him. And yeah, that's one of my problems with it. It just didn't feel like some of the characters belonged to Batman. And Katana was a cool character, although a little odd to add into the first season as Batman's first sidekick, really. I still liked it and found her a fun character, interesting and intriguing, with all the mysteries built up with her and everything that's going on with her. But I feel like one of the most impressive things of the show is that this is, I think, possibly the first Batman show, movie, or anything, any Batman universe, to not include a Joker. Even Gotham, who didn't technically have a Joker, had both Jerome and Jeremiah, with Jeremiah basically becoming the Joker at the end. And it's so crazy to think about. Yeah, so really that's one of the craziest things. But let's go to the back half of the season. This introduces far more interesting characters, including Ra's al Ghul, Deathstroke, Harvey Dent, and Two-Face, another hero, Metamorpho, Simon Stagg, who was introduced in earlier episodes, and a few more that return, like Humpty Dumpty, Mr. Pig, no, Professor Pig and Mr. Toad. Sorry, this Professor Pig doesn't seem like Professor Pig at all, so honest mistake. Speaking of Professor Pig, by this point, I should have recorded a playthrough of Arkham Knight where I fought Professor Pig, since I'm actually recording this like a week in advance, since I do have the time, and was like, you know what, I really want to make this video while the show is still fresh in my mind, so let's go ahead and do it. So, Professor Pig was, and I don't know, he wasn't that good of a villain, and Mr. Toad, he was just kind of there. He felt like a very generic henchman. I have no idea if he actually exists in DC, but I'll say who knows. And to go towards his other villains, Ra's al Ghul was very interesting. His storyline was cool. I definitely enjoyed it. Deathstroke was a sort of departure from the normal Deathstroke, being a student of Alfred, who Alfred gave up on because he was too extreme, and that rejection made Deathstroke want to basically get Alfred's approval. And although that does seem kind of weird, I think it was an interesting, different take to do on Deathstroke, and it did work for him, although it did not work for a few others, like I mentioned, Professor Pig. But ultimately, I feel like one of my favorites of the show, besides the two finales, well, against Ra's and Deathstroke, had to be when Bruce went up against Humpty Dumpty in that murder mystery episode, which I don't know what it is, I just really like that episode. I think it was very well done with all these different characters. But to mention one thing, Mayor Grange, I believe it was, looked, talked, acted, and sounded exactly like Amanda Waller. Crazy to think how similar the two are. And I was just like thinking when I first saw her, well, they're bringing Amanda Waller in. Wonder if they're doing Suicide Squad, and they're like, oh, this is Mayor Grange. I'm like, what? I'm like, this looks exactly like Amanda Waller. It sounds exactly like Amanda Waller does in almost every appearance. I wonder if they were trying to make up some reveal that it was going to be Amanda Waller, or possibly that it was Amanda Waller under a different name. It would basically be the same type of character, but who really knows? I think I saw something that it might be getting a second season to truly wrap everything up, and it may have introduced more traditional villains, so that means Joker may be on the way. But who knows? I feel like Anarchy in this is Batman's Joker, and I really do like Anarchy. Anarchy is a cool character that I did enjoy, but really when looking at it, I think this was, yeah, it was a pretty okay show for the first half of it. It wasn't completely terrible like I remembered. It was okay, but after that it got really good, and I would want to see a second season to see what they would do. One of the few problems I have is the animation looked a little rough, but that would definitely be improved with a new season. And from what I heard is this had a very crazy release schedule once it was on Adult Swim, and I heard that half the show was released within one night because Adult Swim was about to lose the license to premiere the show, so they did it all in like one night. And yeah, I think that it was a good show, but wasn't great, and mainly held down by the first half. Oh, and almost forgot, I do have this Arkham Knight footage playing, and nearly forgot about mentioning Barbara Gordon and her father. And going that quickly, I think that Jim Gordon was a pretty good character. I mean, he is the same basically as he was in most shows besides Gotham, but Jim Gordon still is probably my favorite fictional police officer. And of course, J. Jonah Jameson is my favorite news reporter. Sorry, Superman and Lois Lane and everything. You don't hold anything to J. Jonah Jameson, he is amazing. But let's go back to this. And yeah, I think Barbara Gordon was a good character too. She seemed a little younger, although it seems that she is in high school, based on one episode. But up to that point, I was thinking that she was 13, 14, maybe 12, but it seems like she is maybe 15, 16, which does make a little more sense. But she was only Oracle in this, and Oracle is a character that usually has a pretty dark origin, both the Killing Joke, but they had to skip right past this, and if they do make a season 2, which I'm not really sure about. I saw it online, but it was only quickly, so I'm not really sure. And if it does happen, I wonder if she would become Batgirl, or just stay as Oracle. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please like the video, leave some comments, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends, and may the Force be with you.